So if you're a Brand Growth Heroes superfan and you've ever heard me talking about superfans, superconsumers, SuperGeos, or why you should name, frame, and claim your new category, then all of that thinking comes from one of my favorite guests, one of my heroes, my thinking about thinking heroes, who is Eddie Yoon, and he's one of the world's leading thinkers on category design. So he is a strategist who is a very long time Harvard Business Review contributor. He's co-founder of Category Pirates. It's a top Substack newsletter that you absolutely have to sign up to. He's written a shed load of books. He's spent decades advising Fortune 100 companies on how to create new categories instead of just fighting for scraps of market share. I've studied him obsessively for years. He doesn't just teach marketing, he teaches thinking. So that's why I wanted to get him on the show. And in today's conversation, we're going to dive straight into where Eddie and I are already discussing his thinking on why everything you've learned in marketing strategy textbooks or from any marketing strategy webinars or podcasts up until this point is wrong.
Just talking about competitive strategy, which is like Fiona has market share and I have market share. And for me to grow, I have to steal from Fiona, right? And that can work. And I would say 99 out of 100, brand managers, GMs, presidents, CEOs that I work with, it was one of two things. It was when you really kind of looked at their forecasts, projections, it was, I'm going to steal market share, or population is going to grow and the category is going to grow anyway. So when I realized that, and when I was doing the work for Anheuser, Gillette, and everybody else, it was like, that ain't going to work because getting the 93rd market share point is extremely expensive and really difficult. So therefore, the only way to grow is to grow the category, which is one of three things. You had to increase the price per unit, increase the units per person, or increase the number of people buying the category. It was very simple kind of algebraic math. And what I quickly came to realize was that you were kind of bereft of tools and frameworks to do that. Meaning, probably the most famous book on strategy is Michael Porter's Competitive Strategy. It's literally in the title of the book, Competitive Strategy, which is, it is not about how do I grow the category or in fact create a new one. For Gillette, as an example, one of the really fascinating things for me was, there was a portfolio strategy question that pre-P&G acquisition was, how do we expand the market? Right. This was Mach 3 was launched and launching around the world, and Fusion had not yet come out. And you had a choice between two markets, India or China. And just from a physiological basis, like you would pick India because the Gillette smart folks had figured out that, for whatever reason, a quarter of the world's hair by volume was in India, just population wise and density of hair. And, you look at me and, I'm Korean, but like the Chinese population, not a lot of facial hair necessarily, right? So if you had to pick, you would normally think the former, not the latter. However, what we quickly figured out was that shaving was not about shaving. It was about this idea of looking professional. So the tagline for Gillette for as many decades as it was, I don't know if P&G is still using it, the best a man can get. Superficially, it was in the US, the powers that be were like, well, men are all the same. You want to look the best, that you can get the best girl, and then that was kind of the deal, right? But in China, it was very interesting, which was, well, the best a man can get meant you had to look professional and clean-shaven so that you could get a great job, and then you could get the girl and whatever, happy life, happy wife, all that kind of good stuff with it. And that the importance of the professional angle really kind of narrowed down the window of how you would actually, grow the market. And that, again, a market that at face value looked like an insane one to prioritize over other markets became actually quite logical when you thought about the fanatical education system and really the rigidity of the education system was such that if you didn't get into the right junior high school, you didn't get into the right high school and the right university, and then you were kind of cooked at that point because your job prospects were whatever. So you had this tiny window of when you were looking for a job, a little bit of an extra edge, even though I didn't maybe not have a lot of facial hair or shave, made a big difference. And your willingness to pay a premium for the Mach 3 was dramatically higher than it was in other markets. And that, so again, one of the three levers, we could win over a lot of consumers who didn't have a whole volume of, they weren't shaving a lot. It wasn't like I was shaving in the morning and 5 o'clock shadow came at the shave again. But the price per unit, you could really drive through the roof. And that was really, really important.
Because it was a higher level need, right?
Exactly that. You deconstruct it and you realize like, oh, okay, there's not a father, son, let me teach you how to shave tradition. So you had to create it. Running water, plumbing, this is way back again, not a guarantee. And so what it realized the Gillette team figured out was that it wasn't the quality of the razor. It was actually the presence of shave prep or shaving cream and foam. That was actually the linchpin to kind of unlock. So you had the aspiration and the emotional need as you were describing, but it wasn't around the product. You actually had to create the ecosystem. And when I started to do a lot of that kind of work at Cambridge. So around American Girl and Keurig, like the Nespresso model in Europe, and iRobot and others they were creating new categories, and therefore you had no old playbook to refer to. And in fact, you had to toss all that stuff out, right? Because, in general, in classic CPG, law of supply and demand, good old Adam Smith, like if you lower the price, volume goes up. In new categories, it's the opposite because I don't have a frame of reference for what the new category is, Fiona. And therefore, if I don't know what the category is, I don't know how to shop it, I use price as a proxy for quality or the probability of an outcome. So the higher you price it, the more likely your volume goes up. So like what you really kind of found as I was doing the work and sort of writing about it in HBR, which led to the Superconsumers book, which led to me and Christopher Lockett co-founding Category Pirates, was you kind of had to forget the premise of everything you had been taught when it came to new categories. What you quickly realized was that 99% of the people who were trained in big CPG were actually predisposed to not create new categories because it was the complete opposite of what you were taught. And therefore, the largest of the large companies were not going to be the fertile ground where new categories were birthed. It was going to be from an up-and-coming company that had none of those restrictions, no preconceived notions. And it's a funny story. When I published my book in 2016, 2017, Nielsen had acquired the Cambridge Group. There was a very, very large CPG company, and I won't say which one, based in Cincinnati. I got called into the principal's office, actually, Fiona, for, how dare I write that book? Because it was the complete antithesis of what they believed in.
Wow.
They were like, Superconsumers is idiotic. Mass markets are what we build around here. You just want every consumer. And I was like, every bit of data that I had around new categories was saying that was the complete opposite. Now, you were maintaining share for a large brand. That's one thing, right? However, Tesla is the world's most valuable car company in the world, selling a fraction of the cars that Toyota sells to a set of super consumers. You had, I don't know if you've been following on Netflix, K-pop Demon Hunters. Have you heard of this movie?
My kids are all over it.
Oh, your kids love it. Oh,
Yeah.
I just watched it. It's great, right? My kids love it. #1 stream movie on Netflix. Top of the charts on Spotify. And it is a niche built upon a niche of K-pop plus animation on Netflix. And yet it becomes the biggest movie. You had NVIDIA, the world's largest company by market cap in the world, put out in their latest quarterly statement, we had two customers that drove over 40% of our revenue, and 6 companies account for 80% of our revenue. This idea that, you need, again, every category company is different, but that mass marketing thinking is the way to go. Again, maybe if you're trying to sit on a lead or preserve a market share, but if you're actually trying to create something new, you got to throw all of that stuff out.
I'm thrilled to introduce Brand Growth Hero's newest partner, Jolson. Jolson is a leading B Corp certified commercial law firm that specialises in guiding the founders of scaling CPG brands. With long-term relationships with clients like Little Moons, Trip, Eat Natural, Bear, Graze and Pulson, Jolson is also famous for advising the Innocent founders in their landmark sale to Coca-Cola. And believe it or not, they still work with the Innocent founders at Jam Jar Investments today. I'm especially impressed by how Jolson sets founders up for long-term success and by their commitment to championing female founders. Recently, I asked Jolson managing partners Phil Hale-Smith and Paul Chappie why it's important that founders consider engaging with a commercial law firm that really understands consumer packaged goods.
Ultimately, we're here to provide legal advice, but actually that legal advice is sort of irrelevant if you're not putting it into context. Thinking about how you make a consumer business, co-packing arrangements, understanding the supply chain, thinking about your sort of cost of goods, all of that is essential to ensure that we're delivering. How do you actually make a business work in the consumer space from a legal point of view, but understanding the marketplace fully. And having worked with consumer brands for the last 25 years, we have a great understanding of the whole space, whether that's manufacturing, the customer, the supply chain, the branding part of it, and all of that requires some legal input as well as understanding how the parts fit together.
At the end of the day, if you don't have someone that's been in the trenches day in, day out for a couple of decades, you're going to be disadvantaged.
Huge thanks to Brand Growth Heroes podcast sponsors Jolson. Now let's get back to the show. The thing that I love so much about you guys at Category Pirates is that you are kind of, teaching me the rules of how to think differently. And imagine I'm a brand manager or a marketing director in a blue chip CPG company in, doesn't matter what category, in selling into retail grocery or D2C. And I don't know these rules, right? And I'm thinking the way to compete is back to either value, differentiation, or price, right? And it's about stealing market share and hopefully maybe bringing some incremental, maybe new users into the current category by offering something new and exciting, but it's never really that new, is it? It's never really that exciting. How should we be teaching them to think or, encouraging them to think? So what are they throwing out and what are they starting to think about?
The question I would pose is maybe a little bit of a right turn or an adjacent question, which is to say, let's put your knowledge about how to run your brand at one of the big CPGs on hold for a second. Let me ask you about you. So let's role play. So Fiona, you're up and coming brand manager at CPG company, this and that. And I say, Fiona, is your dream to become the marketing director, the VP of marketing, maybe the CMO, maybe a BU president, maybe the president or CEO of said CPG company? Or is your dream to do something, build your chops, build your resume, get some experience, and then to either jump ship to an up and coming rocket ship, or maybe start your own thing or do something different with it? Because the career paths are vastly different. Not, no judgment. They can all be something that you might be called to, but just know that the first one we laid out requires you to be skilled at other things than your business skills. You can't lose money. You can't be a dummy and all that kind of stuff. However, you need to be risk averse and you need to be a politician. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody who makes it to the top of any of these big CPG firms that is not very, very skilled at building relationships, understanding their political capital, when to deploy it, when not to deploy it, and more frankly, choosing the right stepping stone of career paths to get to the top of the house. And it is not about necessarily building success, because if tell me, I'm a little bit dated in my data, you might have more recent data, but in general, the high-flying executives, they stay in a given job for 18 to 36 months. And guess what? That's just long enough for you to get into the new role, to say, I'm Fiona, I'm in the new role. That Eddie Yahoo he didn't know what he was talking about. I'm going to change it up. New plan, new AOP, new long-range plan comes in. You put it into place. It looks good. And by the time the results come in, you're on to the next job. And you are never really held accountable for your results.
Totally true.
Ever. And so, and that's okay. That it's a role. Those roles need to be filled. If that is what you want to do, then just know the game that you're playing and build those chops. If you want to actually build a business as an entrepreneur, and perhaps not just earn money, salary, stock options in a stable dividend company, but if you want to jump to join a high flyer that's going to up and come and you take an equity stake and you really make a lot of money that way, or you become a solo entrepreneur, advisor, consultant, whatever, and you get to a different kind of wealth, the wealth of time and agency. But all different things, but they are trade-offs that you have to pick from, and they are different skill sets. And so as the stuff that I would teach and we write about at Category Pirates, you should probably not read it, because that will put your politician's job in trouble. I got in trouble for writing heresy, apparently, in the United States. But just know, eyes wide open, what game you're moving into. And, just be comfortable that that's what you want.
I think what I was really asking was the conventional wisdom out there that founders and their founding kind of their second level down of the people who are like kind of like 2, 3, 4, 5 in, they are being quoted, Byron Sharp, and they're being quote, so it's all about penetration. It's not about super consumers. It's just about trial and getting as much penetration as possible. You've got to spread your marketing budget across the year. You've got to be on social media all the time. You've got to CBD is on the rise, so launch a CBD drink. It's all about gut health. So what they're hearing, even though I am personally speaking to a group of people who are in fast scaling founder led businesses, they are still hearing the old fashioned marketing wisdom rather than the stuff that you guys have almost systemized, which is like, what are the core principles of when you have to throw all that old stuff out the window? What should they be focusing on instead?
I think to your point, yeah, for sure, all of that talk is out there, and the Japanese proverb of the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Like you have to be willing to be, oh, this person is different, and you're not conforming, and there's cost to that, right? But so I think there is a question to, in the world that you've been taught with the pressure of penetration and kind of the legacy stuff of better, faster, cheaper, is the quote that I think the founder of Geek Squad in the US for Best Buy talked about is, advertising is the tax you pay for being unremarkable.
Nice.
And so if you have a product that, if I gave you truth serum and you were willing to tell the truth of like, my product, my confection, my beverage, my cereal is not different than anybody else's. I might be slightly cheaper. I might have a little more economies of scale. I might have more sales distribution muscle in this market versus that market, but the product is the same. Basically, you might have a preference for Coke versus Pepsi. They're brown colas. They are effectively the same. There's no different. If that is you, Coke is not going to change their formula, right? They may launch a new product or whatever else it is. If you are in an undifferentiated product space and there's no hope of changing that product space, then all you are left with are the tools that are available to you, right?
The conventional wisdom tools.
The conventional wisdom is the only thing that you have left. And therefore, yes, you should apply those tools should you want to do those, be successful in that regard.
I mean, aren't they all in that space more or less? Because, if you walk down the aisle in Whole Foods in the States or here in the UK or in Ireland, you've got like walls and walls of functional drinks. That was a new category. And then within that category, when that was, functional drinks was no longer new, then there was like subcategories of new types of functional drinks, whether it was magnesium or whether it was CBD or now hydration. Vitamins was the original one, obviously. That was a new category at some point in time. Now it's no longer a new category. So are we saying that every single founder who launches into a food and bev or grocery, household cleaning category, unless it's a completely new category that they're creating, they're going to be fighting for market share and being memorable just like everybody else, and it's going to be an uphill struggle?
100%. The reason why being memorable matters is your product is not memorable, right? Like, so therefore the packaging has to be memorable. The advertising has to be memorable. The price point it's a 2-for-1. It has to be memorable. And so like this whole idea of creating new categories, like the important part to really think through and recognize is that because I've worked with all these companies and I've been party to a lot of these strategies as well, is that strategy number one is benefits, not features. We always talk about that. Everybody talks about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to say benefits are largely irrelevant in this day and age. Outcomes are what matters.
Okay, I love this.
And so this is really important. Like, oh, my feature is better than your feature. Nobody cares, right? I have a new benefit. I have CBD. I have this and that, or whatever else it is, right? And beverages are a better place because beverages, higher margins. There's more disruption and innovation in beverages than in traditional food, is a stable category that way. The beverages that have really been successful, they deliver outcomes, right? And so I always talk about in food and bev in particular, right? The categories you want to be in are legal narcotics, caffeine being one of them, right? And sugar is another. That's a whole different story. But like caffeine as one has always been a fantastic category to be in, right? Dating back to coffee as an example, and creating a new category is not like you've invented a new element of the periodic table. It's actually a much smaller bar in the sense that coffee has been around forever and a half, and then Nespresso created a new outcome, not a new benefit, a new outcome, right? Okay. Consistency of the espresso, speed of the outcome, the ability to have opulence and luxury seeming, but at an affordable price point. That is an outcome that I wanted so that it looks cool in my offices. And that's the other bit that people don't talk about enough, is that both Nespresso and Keurig built their success B2B before going B2C. And that when I worked with Keurig from 2011 to 2014, Kraft went after that market, P&G went after that market, Sara Lee went after that market, all failed. They would argue they had superior products, blah, blah, blah. They certainly had more marketing budget than who knew what Keurig was, right? It was Green Mountain Coffee Roasters with no, regional roaster that bought a device company. Keurig won because they concentrated in the Northeast and they concentrated with office supply distributors. And they solved the problem of $4 billion market. Office coffee sucks. Fiona makes coffee. I love Fiona. She makes her coffee way different than I make it. So when she makes it, I don't like it. I have to go run the Starbucks or wherever to get my stuff. Now, Keurig solved a largely tiny niche of like, is it really that big of a deal that Eddie gets his coffee different than Fiona? Like, yes, apparently it is. And that when you built dominance on the B2B side in offices, you did not need advertising because people were already aware, right? The problem with mental availability and physical availability is that it costs money. And it is easy for an advisor to say, you need more of that, right? Because what do they care? They're not paying for the outcome with it as well, right? And so, and that reinforces to the, it's a big kind of elaborate scheme at some level, because when an advisor tells the CMO or the head of sales, you need more mental availability and physical availability, they go to the CFO, I need bigger budgets so they can spend more. It's self-reinforcing there, right? However, if I told you that, what if I could get the same mental availability by creating a radically different product that delivers a real outcome, not a fake one around features or benefits, and delivers it in a way that is self-funded marketing and awareness building? Everyone in New England knew what a Keurig was because it was in every car dealership, in every doctor's office, in every office that it was there. And they built that in a way that took the original Keurig cost from 10 grand of the device down to $150. They were able to solve all their supply chain problems that way. They had built an awareness there. And then they did the most unbig CPG-like thing, Fiona. You tell me, right? Because I was there when Michelle Stacy and the other leadership, Dwight Brown at Keurig, said, I think we ought to let Starbucks into the ecosystem.
Nice.
They knew full well Howard Schultz was the fox in the henhouse and was the frenemy. Like, they knew full well this could backfire on them. They knew full well that their market share of the category would go down. And they also were betting that if we allow Starbucks and then Dunkin' Donuts into the ecosystem, the pie gets bigger. More people want to sign up for that and they join. And so, yes, I have a lower share of a bigger pie. I'll take that bet because and everyone forgets 6 months after they let Starbucks in, guess what? Howard Schultz announces, we are launching Verismo, our own single-serve device sold through Starbucks and blah, blah, blah. Where is Verismo? It's gone. It had great features, great benefits, but the outcome was I could only buy Starbucks coffee and Keurig is giving me choice. That's the real outcome that I get from it. It didn't work.
So this is a great example of why outcomes matter more than features and benefits. I mean, that is just brilliant. So the first thing then for people to take away is think about outcomes. In order to define new categories, think about the outcomes. The second thing is let's talk about super consumers and super concentrated geos and talk about how they then can become this flywheel. Talk about that because that's just fascinating.
Let's accept, okay, features, benefits trump features, outcomes trump benefits. Okay, that's good. What's an outcome? Well, an outcome from an average consumer is way different than an outcome from a super consumer.
Okay.
Most outcomes for an average consumer is like, I don't really care about this category. Can you make it cheaper? Can you make it easier for me to buy? That's a good outcome for me. I save money, I save time, right? So take podcasting as we're doing now, right? In the prep email that I got, make sure you have a good mic. I have a good mic. I have my Shure mic here with a mic stand and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And the outcome that I was looking for was, does my audio sound good on a podcast? Because why bother doing it if you're not going to sound as best as you possibly can? It doesn't serve you well, doesn't serve me well, blah, blah, blah with it, right? And that when I first started out, I'm like, oh, I have my earbuds and I have my head. It's good enough. And saying, no. The outcome is I want to sound good so that I can make my point come across. And so, because now I'm not just doing podcasts, I record a lot for Category Pirates. We record courses, we record workshops. The sound of my voice is part of the outcome that I'm trying to deliver for Category Pirates, which is unleashing 100,000 category designers into the world. When you become outcome focused for a super consumer, pricing becomes largely irrelevant. It's not an outcome for me, make it cheaper, make it faster, like make it sound better. And I'm willing to pay whatever price we need to pay to get that outcome.
I get that when tech is involved and maybe when chocolate's involved. But, what about when it's just something like frozen peas?
Frozen peas are great. So frozen peas, why would I consume frozen peas? And so an average person has frozen peas because I just need to have it on the off chance I make a beef stew or I get a black eye, just need something put on my eye or whatever else it is. A super consumer is a lot like what Elon Musk does. He asks the question, if I take this to the limit, you think back to your physics classes, like if I take this idea and make it the most extreme and maximum, right? So frozen peas, show me somebody who doesn't have one bag of frozen peas, but has a freezer full of frozen peas.
I can be this person because it's me. I'm a mom. You ask me the questions and I'll tell you about my freezer and frozen peas.
How many bags of frozen peas do you have at any given time?
Okay, at the moment we have about 4 bags of frozen peas and they're not all the same brand. And that's really troubling me. But there's also a massive issue with my bags of frozen peas.
What is the massive issue with your bags?
Well, there's actually 2 or 3. The first issue is that some of them, my kids won't eat some. And now I'm stuck with them. And the second issue is none of them have a Ziploc close.
So let's start with the first one. So why won't your kids eat them? Do they eat them straight? Do they eat them as part of an ingredient?
The only reason I buy frozen peas as a super consumer of frozen peas or a super purchaser of frozen peas is because it's the only way to get green into my kids. It's the only way I know for definite that my 3 kids are going to get some green, that they haven't yet said, no, we don't eat those anymore.
Remind me, how many kids do you have again, Fiona?
3.
3. Okay, I have 3 as well. What you are describing is precisely the problem that the outcome that the Velveeta super consumers was trying to solve for, was that Velveeta, it's a rectangular block of cheese. It's shelf stable. It is not on trend. It's processed, and proudly processed is what they call it.
Proudly
and
processed.
Largely used at the Super Bowl, right? For dips and melting things. And this
Okay.
and that. What the super consumer would buy Velveeta 9 times a year, which was 9x higher than the average person that was using it. And the reason why they would do it is precisely the same use case or the outcome that you were describing, is that my kids won't eat greens. And the only way that I could figure out how to do it was to melt Velveeta on top of broccoli, green beans, whatever.
Okay.
And you know what? When I did that, they would eat them. Velveeta was the Trojan horse to get veggies into my kids' system because I wanted them to have the nutrition. I didn't care how it got there. The other thing, I wanted them to develop a palate for that. So when they became adults, they were not unfamiliar with it. And so when Velveeta or something else becomes the Trojan horse to get veggies in, so then it becomes an interesting thing of like, hey, Fiona, like your kids won't eat them straight, but you're trying to get them into your kid's system. What are the other things that you could buy to couple with the peas to get them into the system of your kids with it? And I'm not suggesting Velveeta on peas. Maybe that actually sounds pretty good, but it could work, could not work, right? But the whole point about Velveeta as an example here was that it was not about the health of the product. It was not about the taste of the product necessarily. It was not about the processed or it's organic and natural. It was about the melt. It was by far the best melting cheese in the category. In the viscosity was perfect. It was ooey, gooey, drooly in all the right ways, where if you put a broccoli stalk, the Velveeta would get into every nook and cranny so that it was a different eating experience with it, right?
Okay.
And when you talked about the melt, the supers were like, oh, that's an easy way of talking about it. And they would tell somebody else, I got this problem. The easiest way to get greens into my kids is to melt Velveeta. Oh, that's genius. Why don't I try to do that? And that's how the brand grew $100 million, just like that. And that the frozen peas example is, this is the problem with, this is a little bit of a jab at the CPG category. Canned food 100 years ago delivered an outcome. You did not kill people with food, right? Frozen food did the same thing, right? You were able to preserve food in a way that was safe.
Mm-hmm.
Food safety is not the same outcome that's as needed or in demand as it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So where are the missionaries in the food business? Like, what outcome are you trying to solve here, right? And so the outcome that you were describing is one that I have heard every mom and every parent talk about, like, how do I get my kids to eat greens? It is a universal problem. So why isn't Birdseye or other frozen pea providers figuring out, like, I got your peas here, and here's pea soup with cheese in it. They'll eat that or drink that. Or peas mixed in with other things, and they'll eat that or drink that. Peas that are roasted and you put a little bit of whatever on it, they'll eat it as a crunchy snack with it, or however you want to do it. But like the pea company is largely I won't pick out any of the brands that you're buying. But they're solving their problem for their outcome.
It's production led still.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
It's how do I sell the most peas to get the most economies of scale? They are not considering, how do I solve Fiona's problem as a mom, of how do I get greens into my kids?
So if we're a challenger brand founder and we're going, do you know what? This is exactly how categories are created, isn't it? Somebody feels the need, and someone says, this is bloody ridiculous. I'm going to shake up the frozen pea category because I feel this need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be all about peas in a completely different way. I'm going to have peas in Ziploc bags because then they're not over the inside of the fridge, the freezer. And I'm going to have peas that are the size of your, I don't know, apples. And I'm going to have peas that are tiny, weeny peas. And I'm going to have peas that are different colors, rainbow peas.
100%.
And I'm going to focus all of my thinking and creativity on delivering outcomes to my super consumer that I've chosen, which was myself, which was moms who are trying to get greens with protein and fiber into their kids.
Yes.
But nobody's doing that in the big old-fashioned brands, are they?
No. You know what you're describing, Fiona, is category design. When we write about category pirates, it's you got to solve all three legs of the magic triangle: the product, the company, and the category itself, right? Because what you were describing is, sometimes I need a little bit of peas, sometimes I need a lot. They go in different ways. So imagine a IQF frozen container where you could release just the right amount of peas that you wanted, right? That would be an amazing thing. And then 2 is if you had a Nespresso Keurig-esque device that would heat the peas and convert them into, like, imagine actually, this was a category we worked on for one of the big CPGs that got killed by the board. We almost got it out the door, but like, imagine a Keurig Nespresso, like kind of a cup noodle type of a situation where peas were the main entry. You added water, you heated it up, and then you had a quick meal that was full of peas that were, easily digested by whatever else.
So like the point of entry is peas rather than noodles, for example.
100%.
Okay, we're talking about understanding super consumers, and I bang on about this to everybody I work with all the time. And like I said, I always reference you guys because I think that's really important. And I think you'll see that on LinkedIn that I reference you quite a lot, or at least I link to you. Talk to us about, how do you at Category Pirates recommend or advise founders like the founders that I speak to understand their super consumers better? And let's dig into where those super consumers live and work, and why SuperGeos matter.
In terms of super consumers, the very best thing that you can do is to hire them. And to look for the ones that you've hired. I mean, it's the most obvious one. Like, there are obviously elaborate techniques to get consumer data, market research, all that kind of stuff with it, right? But the part that I will never forget was at Smithfield, the pork company, was that there was a bacon super consumer they relied on, who was, I think he worked in accounts receivable or accounts payable or something like that. Skinny guy, ate like a couple of pounds of bacon every week. No one could figure out how he did it or whatever else it is. But when they launched a new package or new product, they went to accounts payable guy because he knew more about the experience than anybody else would, right? So 1, look for the ones that you have hired, or hire some more. Because I will tell you, probably the biggest challenge that I have seen at a very tactical level is that the vast majority of executives high, mid, low, whatever, at these big CPG companies, they don't eat their own dog food.
That is crazy.
And some of them are ashamed to actually eat that. They will disdain the product.
I've got people sometimes sitting from bigger companies, in workshops I give, and they are, for example, it might be a vegan product or it might be a dairy product, but half the team are vegans.
It doesn't work.
It does not
does
work.
not work. It does not work. It'll be better for you as the vegan to find a job at someplace else where you actually believe in the product and you consume it and you'll feel great about marketing and selling it. And it does not work for the company in the category. So I think that's kind of the first things first is that the best CPG companies that I know, I just wrote about my friends at Anheuser, when they would go to a bougie restaurant, Fiona, they would call the distributor and make sure they dropped off a pallet of Anheuser product, even though they knew it wasn't like, you were having a great high-end dining meal and you had a Bud Light there, but it was important to them, to consume their own product. Royal Canin, the high-end vet food company owned by Mars, they bring dogs into the interviews. They want to see if you're interviewing for an HR gig, do you get down on your hands and knees?
Okay, interesting.
What's the point? I can find an HR person anywhere, but I want somebody who loves the category, loves the end consumer, so has a love affair with it. So that's kind of one. The SuperGeo is another excellent way of doing this. And so a simple way to describe it is birds of a feather flock together.
Or as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this.
Absolutely. This idea that, again, line number one is that big CPG, you need a national strategy, sales strategy, marketing campaign. No, national is largely for efficiency's sake. I'm going to spend a lot of money and I want to get my dollar's worth, so I'm going to spread it all over everywhere. And the reality is, if you actually look at the data, a small set of postcodes drive the lion's share of a category. And when I remember, this is like 25 years ago, for Unilever, we looked at the sales of not just Ben and Jerry's, but Cherry Garcia, right? And guess what? In the United States, there were 3,000 of the 30,000 grocery stores that drove 80% of Cherry Garcia sales.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And so it's kind of like, one of my regrets, I never figured out why.
This is like the weird data you talk about, I read up
100%.
about you. And this is also, Clayton Christensen, one of your HBR colleagues, I'm sure, wrote about this with the McDonald's milkshakes and the job to be done. But I wonder why the Cherry Garcia was particular in that area. I mean, maybe was it an ethnic thing? Was there a particular large group of Italian families you grew up with cherries?
It's not obvious, but when you deconstruct it, when you really go down and you figure out what's going on, it always makes logical sense. And so I'll give you a different example from a category from Hormel, spam, right? I don't know how Brits feel about spam, but I imagine in most places it's a look down upon food and products.
It's something from history, something from the war, something that lots of people have heard their parents talk about.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly the right sentiment in the U.S. Now, where I was born in Hawaii is the highest per capita consumption of spam in the United States.
Okay.
So you might ask why, right? And so exactly the same thing. Remote area, so shelf stability really important.
Mm-hmm.
Military presence, a lot of military bases in Hawaii, right? And high Asian population. Asians love spam, right?
Why do Asians love spam?
So let's go back and further with it. So I'm also Korean by ethnicity. So Korea, also the highest per capita country in the world for spam consumption. Again, back to the Korean War, military base, presence of the U.S. military, hungry people needed spam as a source of calories. And there, when you have necessity to stay alive, there begins a love affair with it, right?
So it's part of your comfort food, childhood comfort food.
100%.
Do you also have recipes? Like, would everyone have a spam recipe?
There's a Korean dish called budae-jjigae, which is called army stew, basically.
Okay, well, there you go. So it's made it into the fabric of society.
It's made it into the culture, and it's comfort food. It's like ramen noodles and stew and tofu, and literally Vienna sausages, hot dogs, spam, like all the processed stuff that you could imagine a U.S. military base with. They all go into it, and you eat it, and it tastes great. You feel terrible after you eat it, whatever it was. But like, when you go to Hawaii, though, here's what's really kind of fascinating is that every convenience store, gas station has what's called spam musubi. I don't know if you're familiar with this. A musubi is a sushi variant. It's like a rectangular block of rice. There's a piece of cooked spam on it with a piece of seaweed wrapped around it.
Okay.
So it's like a like a spam sushi sandwich that you can have on the go. They sell for about $1 or $2 per, right?
Mhm.
And the ready to go food. That is probably a 20x price premium on a can of spam,
Wow.
right? On a per ounce serving. So like when you look at that, you're like, well, how do I take this brand that is like has this nostalgia, not necessarily in a good way, and how do I actually create a new category around it? You see a SuperGeo. SuperGeos are basically local zip codes or postcodes where the category per capita consumption is off the charts. It is unusually high by a factor of 10 or more oftentimes. And in most marketers, CPG, they dismiss it as that's just weird people doing weird stuff, right? And they don't kind of expect it to be, no, it is actually a crystal ball into the future of what could be if you were to design it, right? Now, I am not saying that spam musubi will take the UK by storm. However, if I find a place that has a lot of Asians there, and I find a place that maybe has some Americans or people from
And
Hawaii or
some
whatever,
Korean
or
restaurants.
Korean restaurants, I guarantee you we can build out a spam per capita, spike there.
Mhm.
And then what ends up happening is that a super consumer has found that spam delivers an outcome, which is to say, is spam making me healthy? No. Here's the part that's always interesting. Most marketers and CPG companies, they think of their categories of their brands in a vacuum. Is spam healthy? Yes or no? However, if you have empathy and you put it into the context of a super consumer, I'm hungry. I'm driving from Manchester to London or whatever it might be. I need something to eat. Is a spam musubi healthier than stopping at McDonald's? Probably.
Yeah.
And so it is always in relative to the outcome and the problem that you're solving, your brand could take on a completely different life and a completely different value if you actually understood what that would look like. And if you did that homework and you did that digging, and then you asked yourself the most important question of anyone in CPG should ask themselves this question is not what is true or what will be true. That is the bane of every large company brand manager. They're like, Fiona, I don't want to get fired. I don't want to make a prediction that's not going to be true. You ask the question, what must be true for spam to become as universally accepted in the UK, in Manchester, as it is in Honolulu? It's a completely different framing. It's like, I'm not asking you to predict the future. It's like, what else would need to be true? Okay, we need a bunch of Koreans and Hawaiians and whatever to move to this area. Okay, check. We would also need, a bunch of leading edge convenience stores or gas stations to take a leap of faith. Is there somebody a retailer, a Marks and Spencer, who's willing to take a leap forward and try something new? Okay, check.
We need
that.
some edgy branding that speaks to them.
100%. And then maybe you might need to adapt it for a UK palate or whatever else it might
Or
be.
maybe the actual ingredients in the spam would need to be British beef.
100%. And you can say, I need an enemy. Is there, this is where my imagination falls short here, Fiona. Is there something that Brits eat in that type of, I'm driving, I'm going to a petrol station, I eat something, I don't feel good about it. I would rather eat this instead of that. What is that enemy?
Greg's.
What is that?
Greg's is a chain bakery, right? I'm sure there's loads of people who eat Greg's. Greg's is on every high street and it is known for its sausage rolls, which is like a big, long pastry, full of sausage meat. And it's, the truck drivers and the builders, and they do a vegan sausage roll. And, they do very well for themselves. But there's a lot of people who would feel really crappy if they ate Greg's.
Now we just need to find a postcode that could be the start of something where a lot of Koreans, Hawaiians, Americans, military people, there's a Greg's there that we can compete against, market the enemy. And again, Greg's not a competitor to spam, obviously at the superficial level, but you could make it so in the outcome. That's the other part is that when you go outcome focused, like features comparison narrows your competitive set. Benefits elevates a little bit. Outcomes can be solved by many brands in many categories. And the idea of share of wallet becomes or share of stomach in this regard, becomes much, much bigger. And you might find that is way easier to position your brand vis-a-vis a Greg's than it is to your direct competitor, where you're probably not that different.
So talking about outcomes and how positioning against an outcome puts you almost into competition with lots of other categories. Let's talk about the outcome being high protein or gut health. Okay, so imagine I'm saying my outcome is it's a high protein sweet treat. Does that not then put me up against so many different competitors? How do I then, without becoming really like fastidious about my benefits,
Yeah.
how do I then make myself remarkable being the only high protein sweet treat worth talking about?
So a high protein sweet treat is still, I would argue, in benefit land. And so the question you got to ask why, like a toddler. Why do you want a high protein sweet treat? Well,
Okay.
I have a sweet tooth, and I feel guilty. I can't stop eating sweets and chocolate and whatever else it is.
I'm training and I need my protein, but I still love dessert and I wish I could eat more.
Perfect. So let's say I'm an athlete training, and then I have a sweet tooth, and when people say protein, is not a benefit unto itself. The outcome is I want satiety. I'm either building muscle
Yeah.
or maintaining muscle, or I'm trying to stave off hunger,
Yeah.
right? Then the question becomes, why is that important? Well, I'm building muscle so that I can improve my race times.
hmm
Or I'm eating protein so I get satiety so that I don't overeat so I can lose weight.
Nowadays in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the States, but it's all about the menopause. Do you have it all about the
Sure,
menopause over there?
sure,
So it's like,
absolutely. Yeah.
women from whatever 46 plus are all thinking about, I need more protein at every meal. So it
Yeah.
could be that.
You have three super consumers: an
Yeah.
athlete, someone who's trying to lose weight, and someone who's trying to manage menopause.
Yeah.
And basically, and then the menopause one is the most interesting one, I think, in the sense of like defining the outcome is not going to be I get younger. That's not realistic. Defining the outcome is not going to be I stop having menopausal symptoms. That's probably not realistic either. And because this is the part that's so important to this conversation, is that you don't want to overpromise an outcome that you cannot deliver. Then no one believes you, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you won't feel any of the downsides of menopause. That's not realistic. However, protein to take the edge off of menopause as you search for a way in how your next phase of your life is going to look, right? And that invariably, menopause is a physiological manifestation that comes with an emotional upheaval, an aspirational upheaval, and a life upheaval one, an identity one.
Can I suggest it's about strength? So I think it would be in this instance, and again, this is us jamming, which is kind of
Sure.
fun. I didn't expect us to spend the podcast doing this, but it's great. I think it's like because of that upheaval that you're talking about, and you're so rightly painting, it's like I feel the need, as I'm speaking for this woman,
Yep.
to make sure that my body is maintaining its core level of strength as I age, to set myself up for this future that I'm not quite sure about.
100%. It's one of the things that I think I've seen in a lot of fitness things for both men and women is that weightlifting way more important than cardio
Yeah,
at a
exactly.
certain age, so that you maintain muscle strength, so that you can, if you fall, you can pick yourself up again, right? Like very basic everyday things we take for granted. You need to have the muscular strength and the bone strength to be able to do that, right? And so it could be I need protein and I need stronger muscles because I'm trying to improve my race time. It could be I need protein, I need more muscle because I want my metabolism to increase so I can lose weight. Or it could be I'm trying to prepare myself for a life post menopause where I might have the financial resources and the wisdom to live my best life, but my body isn't keeping up.
Exactly.
I don't need to be a bodybuilder, but I want to be core strength. I want to be able to do what I want to do without feeling pain and aches afterwards and the like. So all three of these things, super tangible outcomes. And that what it tells me is that packaging probably plays a much, much bigger, if it's a functional beverage or whatever, like it's like, look, you need to be packaged for the context in which the outcome is going to be readily apparent, right? So if it's an exercise one, it's on the go packaging that needs to help. And that can be a meaningful differentiator for the same underlying product. If it's, I'm trying to lose weight, I want it to be easy to consume because sometimes the thing that ends up in my mouth is the easiest thing to open, right? So I want it to be super easy to unwrap and whatever. And if it's for menopause, it could be, I never know when I'm going to have a hot flash or I'm going to have some sort of a reminder that I'm in menopause. So it needs to be portable on the go. I could keep it in my purse, keep it in the car, or I need to have it so that it's packaged in a way like the Coke within arm's reach, right? That was a strategy and a choice. It was not, I want to swap out a Coke for a Pepsi. I want Coke within an arm's reach. That meant distribution. That meant alternative forms of distribution. It meant refrigeration. It's way, way different than physical availability. It is about designing an experience through category design.
Can this product, though, that we're designing here appeal to all three of those people?
100%.
They're all looking for the same outcome, or do I need to niche down? And
You just hit the nail on the head, Fiona, is that the secret to super consumers is that 99% of the experts out there will say, you're leaving behind so many people. Whereas the reality is, when you solve a super consumer's outcome, no matter how niche it gets, so it could be English women having menopause who live in Manchester who are of Mediterranean descent. I don't care how niche it gets,
Okay.
right? The nichier you get, the more the probability of you solving the outcome goes up because you're so dialed into the consumer, right?
okay,
You're going to say, okay, I know what, I don't have to solve for everybody. I'm going to solve for this, Mancunian, Mediterranean, menopausal woman.
that's great in the States when there's millions of these people.
This is the part that's the magic that you have to have experience to see. Is when I solve for this Mancunian, Mediterranean, menopausal woman
Mhm.
in such a way that it delivers a massive outcome,
Mhm.
something about that, the lengths to which you go to design the product, to design the company and the category to solve for that, other people will say, I'm not that triple M consumer. The way that you deliver that is awesome for me. So when Rogaine came out for hair, it was badly positioned as hair replacement for men. Women were using it for hair thinning. Had they launched it as a women's hair thinning prevention product, it would have been 10 times larger, right? But women still found it, even though the brand was saying it's not for you, it's not for you, it's not for you. And the same thing is true of like my Keurig friends. There were lots of non-coffee drinkers who were buying it. Why would you buy that? Well, when Fiona comes over and she wants a cup of coffee or whatever, I don't know how to make coffee. Keurig solves it for me, right? So this idea that the part that people fail to realize or fail to really, and some of it you just have to experience. You solve for the super. The outcome that you need to deliver requires you to elevate your game. And when you elevate the product, the company, the distribution, the category itself, it often ends up being a relevant outcome that you can deliver for other people that are not in the niche. That is the magic.
So don't be afraid of it.
Do not be afraid. Like the Keurig one was as niche, northeastern offices to solve for that, and there emerged a mainstream product and scale from that. Like it is the truth of the matter is, if you solve for features, you'll be undifferentiated and you're relying upon all the old stuff, right? Solving for benefits is a lightly way of improving the game, but you solve for an outcome. You need to niche down to a super to credibly solve for an outcome. You hold yourself to a higher standard. And when you do that, you will find that in your solution, there is a mass solution that's available. Again, I go back to the Tesla example. They started out, the master plan that Elon wrote in 2006, I'm going to build an electric sports car. Niche product, right? I'm going to use that money to build an electric luxury car. I'm going to use that money to build an electric mass market car, all while providing sustainable power generation for everybody else, right? And so this is the part that when you solve for the higher bar super, you end up with a credible outcome that is more universally applicable. And most important, Fiona, is that you don't need to spend a lot of money on marketing because the supers will spread word of mouth in a way that is so powerful.
Let's talk about the lightning strike then, because this is really important because we are all spending, in CPG in every single European country, and I'm sure in America as well. We are saying, right, what does our calendar look like? What are the themes? What are the seasons? And then how do we spend big bursts of money? Some of that's going to be with agencies on retainers every month of the year and on advertising spend every month of the year. And then there's going to be big bursts. Talk about the lightning strike because this is revolutionary.
So a lightning strike is the concept where you want to take all of your resources. And here's what a lightning strike is not. It's not peanut buttering or spreading your resources thinly. Every week I have a flight calendar and to the point where you become noise and meaningless, right? And no one can hear you. It's really placing a big bet in a one-off location. It might be a smaller one, but it creates so much conversation that the earned media becomes overwhelming. And again, supers are talking about it and that you don't have to talk about it. Now, it is completely counterintuitive because the vast majority of people who join big CPG, they're risk-averse people. I want to join an established brand and learn the old ways of how to do it with a budget that's huge and this and that, so that I don't have to worry about whatever else it is. And a lightning strike, it says, I want you to bet the farm on this one particular thing. So it's very counterintuitive.
But this is great for my community because although we do have lots of people who work in big CPG listening, usually it's those who are waiting to jump ship. So let's imagine we're talking to a founder who's only got 60 grand in his marketing budget or her marketing budget, right?
Yep.
And they're trying to spread that throughout 12 months and they're not seeing it move the dial. What should they be doing instead?
Just today, we launched a lightning strike mini book on Category Pirates. How to do it with $0, $10,000, $100,000, or $1 million.
Oh, that's incredible.
And we tell the Dude Wipes story. So Ryan Megan, the CMO of Dude Wipes, has this amazing story of again, you have to be able to reject the premise where 75% of his marketing and his lightning strikes are unplanned. They're completely reactive, which would give a heart attack to most marketers. Like, you want me to have a calendar that's completely empty 3/4 of the time? No way I'm going to do that, right? Why he does that is his lightning strikes are completely reactive because he knows that a lot of the advertising properties will have brands that fall through. Oh, I was going to be on this billboard, brand drops out the last minute. Digital property, brand drops out the last minute. Ryan has cultivated these relationships where they know I can call Ryan to save my behind. Because when Fiona's brand dropped out of my billboard, the day passes, that revenue is gone. It's never coming back. I will take £1 to fill that space there, right? So I call Ryan. Ryan says, no problem, can help you out. That normally is a 20 grand. Can I get it for 10? Can I get it for 5? You know? And so me, owner of the billboard's like, thank goodness you saved my butt. I went from 0 to 5 grand. Ryan got a piece of media for 75% off, right? And then he says, okay, now, not only do I want a great price, I want to be able to do what I need to do to dudify it. I need to make it my brand. And like, well, normally we don't do that. So like, I'll give you a great example of the NHL, so the National Hockey League, had a situation like this where Ryan came to the rescue and they're like, great, we'll give you a great deal on it. We're going to put your logo on the hockey, the barriers there, right? He's like, logo is not important. I want to put my message out there. And they fought, went all the way up to the NHL commissioner. Ryan won because he had all the leverage, right? And then it now on the NHL, it says, Dude Wipes, protect your crease.
Nice.
Right? And it's all on brand and all points. So number one is the lightning strike requires you to be agile versus large, right? And it requires you to be flexible versus, the 800-pound gorilla and somebody who's pre-planned everything. So that's kind of the one. If you only have $60,000, dollars in able to spend, try the reactive strategy where you are looking for opportunistic ways to deploy your money, where you can buy it for 600 and it'll feel like 600,000, right? And so number one, it's the Warren Buffett adage, I don't make money when I sell, I make money when I buy. So you buy the property cheap is one, right?
Okay.
The second one is actually, this is where CPG, a sector of CPG has done this very well, is your friends at Nestle, my friends at Nestle, all the confection players, is seasonal marketing is effectively a lightning strike. So is Halloween not a thing in the UK? It might be an American thing, I think, right?
No, it is. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. I mean, it's not as big as Easter or Christmas, but it's big.
Halloween, great example, right? Is in the US, the single largest SKU for confection is the Costco Halloween bag.
Okay.
Right. And it's like, well, how is that the case? Well, the Costco Halloween bag has the most number of pieces. It's obviously, it buys in bulk. It's a great price point. But more importantly, it has every major brand from Nestle, from Mars,
clever.
And from Hershey and whatever.
It's a sampling opportunity for them.
100% a sampling opportunity. And now, will Hershey do this? No. So Costco buys all their confection and they pack it themselves and they sell it. It's the number one SKU, right? Because they understand the outcome is not, I'm consuming the chocolate. The outcome is I'm giving it away. And the outcome I'm trying to avoid is a bunch of rude teenagers egg my house because I ran out of candy and the like, right?
Sure.
And so it's a very different outcome. Piece count is what matters. And with the very best seasonal marketers who do the lightning strike is like, don't change the candy. You don't have to make it funny shapes or whatever else it is, because you're going to lose money. You're giving the candy away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You might change the packaging on the outside, so it's a little festive or whatever. But what really matters is a larger bag with a larger piece count at a great price, so that you avoid the problem of I ran out of candy and I'm the loser house on
So
the
it's
block.
understanding the outcome again. That dictates the features and the benefits.
Yes, and that's the part that I would say, because the vast majority of marketers either do not understand the problem they're solving, and the reason why they don't understand the problem is because they're not the consumer and they're not a super consumer, right? They don't have 4 bags of peas in their freezer, most of them, most likely, with it. So the problem never occurs to them. And so the outcome is a non-obvious outcome for them. And so if you just kind of befriend, look for the people that you've hired and look for in a SuperGeo, and then you look for, if you have clarity on the problem, the outcome that they want, and you design a lightning strike to create the biggest buzz, because people need to remember that I don't care if you buy a Super Bowl ad or a World Cup ad or whatever, like it does not compare to word of mouth, which is, was, and always will be the most powerful form of marketing. And it's not the earned media or the media saying, oh, this ad was a great, clever, creative. It is when you have such a clear outcome and such a clear POV, a point of view, that is so memorable and easy to repeat that I can say, when I have this problem, X brand gives me this outcome. And they give it to me because of A, B, and C reasons. Spread, goes viral, goes everywhere. That is the goal. And that most brands and most marketers cannot, they think they are the star on stage. They are not. The super consumer is, you need to put the microphone in them. You teach them the lyrics for the words to say, but it solves a need that they have to deliver as an outcome, and that they can talk about with other people. And that's how you make a lightning strike that you spent 60,000 pounds on feel like 600,000 or 6 million pounds.
It's so funny, isn't it? We just finished our latest mini MBA cohort. I make all of the founders who do the mini MBA program call 5 super consumers a week. Most of them are niching down now. And this is as a result of your teaching to me over the years, kind of reading your newsletters and then doing your program as well. They're niching down in different ways, because one, for example, a protein cheesecake company that I now work with realized that most of her 80%, 90% of her sales come from a particular area in the north of England. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Once realized that, then realized, okay, this is why I started the company originally. Decided was told that I needed to go broader, so went very broad, and then it didn't really mean much to many people. And now I'm going to niche back down and matter to the people who are still representing 80% of my sales. So it's just so powerful. Thank you so much, Eddie. Are we forgetting any major rules before we sign off that I need to share?
No, I think this is only for people who are willing to accept that everything that they've been taught might not be correct, and that if I'm open-minded about and I care mostly about my outcomes and my customers' outcomes, then there's a world that you'll learn from category design and the Category Pirates Substack with that. So that's the best place to start. But like the other thing that I would talk about is in a world of AI, probably the most effective thing that we've launched in recent times is the founding tier of our Substack at pricey. It's at $350 a year, but you get access to a Pirate Eddie AI bot. Yeah.
So tell us about the Pirate Eddie AI bot. What does it do? Because I've read about it, but I didn't really get it.
It's built on a platform called Delphi.ai, and it is trained on all 200 of our mini books. So
Right.
the reason why that's important, Delphi has a much larger context window, so you can upload more content than you can with a ChatGPT or Claude or Grok. And it functions like an AI librarian, but the beauty of it is the interface is you can chat with it on a computer, you can text it with a real live phone number, you can call it and have a conversation. It's trained on my voice. But you can have, it's designed for, oh, I read about this, tell me about lightning strikes. And then you can have an ongoing conversation about how to do it for you and your brand in a way that, like, what I've discovered is like teaching people and take my own medicine. People want outcomes. They don't want to read my stuff or our stuff. They want the answer to the question so they can deploy it to get the outcome that they want. And the AI bot is a far superior way of getting to their outcome. Like some of the people might want to read this stuff.
Say I paid for your founding tier and I went into the Eddie AI bot. Would I be able to say, how do I best market my Tempeh product?
Yes. If you said, now I'm marketing this product, you give it the context that you normally would with an AI tool. What mini book is most helpful for me to read about this? And then it would clarify. It goes back and forth with you about the problem. Like, hopefully, it would say, I think you should read "The Problem Is Your Problem." Like, and this is a great mini book that we have, which is that most brands, the problem of your brand is you are not solving a problem. You're offering a feature or a benefit at a cheaper, faster, better rate, right? And solving a real legitimate problem is the key to giving an outcome. But most people haven't done the work to, I'm solving for menopause in my new transition, to lose weight, to build a faster race time. That's the problem that you're trying to solve, which gives you the outcome. And so it might say, for a Tempeh product, what problem is my problem? You read it, you jam, I think my problem might be this. Here's 3 examples. Can you give me 5 more? Ooh, it's really like this. And it'll prompt you, tell me about a super consumer. Tell me about why is it that most of your sales happen in Northern England? And it'll have as if like we're doing now. It is very similar to the jamming experience that we're just going through, trained on our books, and it'll get you to a place where you have more clarity about the problem that you need to solve and therefore what outcome you need to deliver. Now, it won't deliver all the way to bright, but that's what we're working on. But I have found that if, you can't jam like we are jamming, this is a really, really good alternative to that.
Because there's only one Eddie, right? And only one Eddie can help so many companies at so many hours in the day. You can work one-on-one with someone like you, or you can work in a group in like one of your programs. But this is a way of getting to millions of people and helping millions of people.
Yes. It's all about scale and leverage, which has been hard to do in this traditional format and stuff. So
yeah, well, listen, I'll put links to your Category Pirates Substack. I highly recommend that everybody reads it. Lots of the stuff is free, and there's only a very small paywall for a certain level, and follows you on LinkedIn. And yeah, where else can they? Oh, buys your book. Your book is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. All that's good. I would actually push people towards a Substack because our latest writing on even super consumers is all there too. So,
Eddie Yoon, Category Pirates, thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fiona.
That was one of my favorite conversations ever. I can't believe we were talking about K-pop demon hunters and new categories. We talked about how Nespresso and Gillette grew new categories by, showing consumers that they had needs they didn't even know how to articulate. And that's the thing. Breakthrough categories don't come from just better features or slightly nicer packaging. They come from deeply understanding what are the outcomes that your super consumers are looking for around an insight or a truth. So what are you going to do after this? You're going to go away, find your K-pop stack, your Velveeta moment, your peas problem, and that is where you're going to find the exponential growth that you need to super scale your business. So thank you so much, Eddie. You have been, a long-time hero of mine, and on the mini MBA program, I mention you and the Category Pirate Group so much. You're an absolute star. Thank you for coming on the show, and see you all on the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share with a fellow founder. It really means the world to me. We do put a huge amount of work into this podcast, and we hope that it creates some transformation inside your heads to let you build something incredible.